Sprint, explaining F1's returning format and why it's more significant ahead of Emilia Romagna GP. Answering the key questions on the sprint as the grid-setting Saturday race returns for Emilia Romagna GP. Watch all the action live on Sky Sports F1. The sprint is at 3:30 p.m. on Saturday, and the Emilia Romagna GP is at 2 p.m. on Sunday. After 3 entertaining and incident-packed sprint weekends last year, the format returns at Imola for the Emilia Romagna GP. But what are the benefits of the sprint, what's happened so far, and what's new? Ahead of this weekend's action, all live on Sky Sports F1. We answer some of the key questions about a format that is set to bring even more excitement to. What exactly is the sprint? Sponsored link. Why everyone in Thailand is snapping up this $99 military vibes watch. Recommended by. The Sprint is the name of the shortened Saturday race that debuted in 2021 and is back for 2022, shaking up the usual weekend format and providing more wheel-to-wheel action with another race. Verstappen claims pole amid F1 quali chaos, Mercs suffer early exit. The tweaked full schedule for this weekend's Emilia Romagna GP. Effectively a mini version of what we see on Sundays. Drivers race over 100 kilometers, which is a third of the usual race distance, and in Imola's case converts to 21 laps in a flat-out sprint for grid slots for the Grand Prix and points for their championship hopes. Replacing qualifying in the Saturday slot, we'll see the sprint at 3 more rounds in 2022, starting this weekend. It starts at 3:30 p.m. and is live on Sky Sports F1 and main event, with build-up from 2:30 p.m. How does it work? The 20 drivers start in the order they qualified on Friday evening, more on that below, and their finishing positions 100 kilometers later will be the positions they line up in for the start of Sunday's Grand Prix. If you win, you're starting Sunday's race from pole position. If you're 10th, you start in that same spot one day later, while if you hit technical trouble or crash out, you'll be at the back and left with it all to do. Are there points for the sprint? Yes, and significantly more than last year in one of the key changes. In 2021, only the top 3 drivers scored points, and there were only a total of 6 points on offer. 3 for the winner, 2 for second and 1 for. In 2022, the top 8 will score points, and that points total rises to 36. The winner will collect 8 points, second place will score 7, with this continuing in descending order down to 8th, 1 point. The points on offer means the sprint is even more important in 2022. Not only do more drivers, on top of battling for grid position for Sunday's race, have a chance of points, but they can now take a total of 34 points. A Vera weekend instead of the usual 26. Plus, if a driver wins all 3 sprints in 2022, that almost adds up to a race win on its own, 24. Handy. What's happened in the sprint so far? The sprint had its critics before debuting in 2021 in Silverstone, Monza and Interlagos, but nobody can dispute that the new format provided entertainment to the weekends. Max Verstappen won the British GP opener after beating Lewis Hamilton off the line, before Valtteri Bottas won both the Italian and Brazilian GP sprints for Mercedes, the latter featuring an incredible charge through the field from Hamilton. While not responsible for controversy directly, the sprint also had its part to play in hugely dramatic moments last year. At Silverstone, Verstappen getting ahead off Hamilton in the sprint led to the pair clashing on the first lap in Sunday's race. Again at Monza, the pair collided a day after the sprint. In Interlagos, meanwhile, Hamilton's comeback driver resulted in the title rivals going wheel-to-wheel again on Sunday, with Verstappen escaping a penalty for his driving and Hamilton winning to reignite his championship. What happens to qualifying? The usual 3-part knockout qualifying hour took place on Friday rather than Saturday afternoon. Max Verstappen topped the session, which progressed through Q1, Q2 and Q3 as normal to find the fastest driver and determine the 1 to 20 order for the sprint. Which then in turn, as mentioned above, sets the grid for Sunday's race. How many practice sessions are there? There are only 2 practice sessions this weekend, 1 fewer than normal, each running to 1 hour in length, as is now the case in F1 from this year. Practice 1 starts on Friday at 12:30 p.m., with Practice 2 at 11:30 a.m. on Saturday ahead of the sprint. What else is new? On top of the extra points, there is also a pole position clarification for the 2022 sprint events after complaints from drivers. Last year, the winner of the sprint race was awarded pole for the record books, but pole is now being credited to the driver who sets the fastest time in Q3 in qualifying, as is usually the case on a weekend. So Verstappen has pole, and will start at the front of the grid for Saturday's sprint. However, the driver who wins the sprint will start Sunday's main Grand Prix from first, i.e. pole position. Are there pit stops in the sprint? Although not technically banned, pit stops are few and far between given how short a sprint is. Unlike the Grand Prix, there is no mandatory change of tires required and, unless cars hit damage or puncture or it rains, don't expect them to leave the action on track for the pit lane between lights out and the checkered flag. Drivers are free to run on whatever tire compound, hard, medium or soft, that they wish. And the Grand Prix, is that unchanged on Sunday? The 63 laps of the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix around Imola are unchanged and are still the main event for the weekend. Lights out this year is at 2 p.m. Sky F1 build-up starts at 12:30 p.m. The usual points apply for race day, that's 25 for the victory, or a maximum of 26 if the winner nabs the fastest lap too, down to 1 point for 10th place. Where else will sprint weekends take place in 2022? Austria's Red Bull Ring will next host the sprint weekend on July 8 to 10, before the format returns to Interlagos on November 9-11, with 3 rounds again. Playing host to the sprint. F1 had hoped to double the amount of sprints to 6 for 2022, but had to settle for a compromise after several of the top teams complained over cost issues. Amid the budget cap, depending on the success this year, expect the sprint format to feature more heavily on calendars in the future.